Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head across the Øresund once again to Copenhagen in Denmark, and we're going to revisit a brewery that I think I've reviewed 3 or 4 different beers from, but they've always been very good, and particularly at the IPA side of the spectrum, but also at the darker side of the spectrum as well. So I'm very curious to see how this one turns out, because it was really highly recommended to me by the guys at Kiosk, and you know, they know their stuff. So for this one we are going to return to Gamma Brewing Company, and we're having a taste of the Guap. So this one is a New England IPA coming in at 7% ABV, and the guys in Kiosk told me that this is one of the best IPAs in Denmark as of early 2019. So if they're saying that about it, I'm very excited to see what this one has on offer, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one. The hops in this are Azacca, Equinox and Mosaic, so it should be a really quite interesting hop bill and a really interesting IPA, this one, and I know that these guys do some interesting IPAs already, but this is one that has a particular hype about it at the moment. So as I say, I really hope that this is an awesome beer and that you guys enjoy my take on it. I always enjoy reviewing these beers from the very small Copenhagen breweries. But yeah, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Gamma Brewing Company before. No doubt there will be some more in the near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Danish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a little bit about Gamma Brewing Company. So Gamma Brewing Company was founded back in 2014 by 4 friends in Copenhagen who were bartenders at some of the various craft beer bars around the city. As I've told you, Copenhagen is a little bit of a beer mecca these days. You know, it's one of the best craft beer cities in the world in my opinion. But they often talked about how it would be cool to have their own brewery, and they've since taken in another co-owner. So the team at the brewery now is Jakob, Anders, Jesper, Koi and Nick. But they all had a little bit of home brewing experience, and 2 of them had also worked in the Ulsnedkeren bar in Copenhagen, which purchased the former Stronzo brewery in Gørløse up in the northern part of the city, and this has later turned into something called Ølkollektivet. So, apparently they were invited to join Ølkollektivet very early on, and they got a good deal on a 20 hectolitre tank, and they started the brewery together without actually having any experience of running their own business, but it's went very well for them. They expanded twice in the very early stages, and they were producing around 500 hectolitres of beer per year back in, I think, about 2017, but they were exporting their beers as well to Germany, Sweden, and I think also the Netherlands too, but they've expanded even further since then. And one of the co-owners of this brewery as well is also the co-owner of the Mig and Ulsnedkeren bar in Aarhus, which is over on Øland, or Jutland if you want to give it its English name. But Ølkollektivet, which these guys are a part of, is home to Ulsnedkeren. You'll see me review my first beer from them very soon. These guys, Gamma Brewing, Dry and Bitter, who are another very good Danish craft brewery, and Ulsnedkeren were also brewing the beers for Bad Seed Brewing Company for a while as well. I don't think they're still doing that. I've not heard any more about that. And Ølkollektivet was also home to Ghost Brewing, who have since moved on, and also the Rooster brewery as well, who I've never tried anything from. I need to try and get some of their beers. But there's a hell of a lot of activity going on in Copenhagen these days when it comes to craft beer, and just some really awesome breweries over there. So if you do want to go and have a really good time with craft beer, go to Copenhagen. Granted, it's a little bit more expensive than some other places in Europe, but you know, the quality of the beer in Copenhagen, and actually throughout the rest of Scandinavia, is very good these days. You certainly won't be disappointed in it at all. But yeah, that's all you really need to know at the moment about Gamma Brewing Company. Definitely one of the Danish craft breweries that you really should check out. I always enjoy the beers that I have from these guys, so very curious to see what this particularly hyped one is all about. But yeah, check out the brewery website in the description below, and as always you can follow them on Facebook, Untappd and Instagram and stuff like that, and that'll keep you up to date with all the latest goings on there. But yeah, let's go on to the tasting of this beer itself then. So as I mentioned at the start of the video, this one is a 7% New England IPA. It's hot with Azacca, Equinox and Mosaic, so it should have a really interesting interesting fruity side to it, this beer. Azaka, from what I remember, is a kind of very light, almost mandarin-y orange that you get from it, but it's got a little bit of a kind of pineapple-y kind of complexity. Equinaut is a straight lime from what I remember, and Mosaic, of course, is that tangerine orange, but it can have a little bit of a tropical fruit complexity to it as well. I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open it up. It actually, when I saw this can, it really kind of reminded me a little bit of some of the stuff that you would get from Cloudwater. You know, the Cloudwater cans are very, very similar to this, in my experience. But yeah, you know, it's really quite nicely presented, this one. And as I say, this is a beer that they were particularly excited for me to try when I was in Chios. They said, "Oh, if you want a really good Danish beer at the moment, this is one that you have to try." So yeah, as I say, a New England IPA coming in at 7% ABV, Equinaut, Azaka, and Mosaic in this one. So yeah, let's get it out, and we will get on with the tasting then. So yeah, I brought back I think it was 8 beers that I brought back from when I went over to see Alestorm in Copenhagen. So I always come back, when I go to Copenhagen, you know, you always have to splash out a little bit and treat yourself to a couple of different beers. So yeah, as I say, this beer, you can smell some of the lovely fruity notes off this already. There's oranges, tangerine oranges and mandarins and stuff just jumping out of the glass with this one at you. If I hold this beer up to the light, I think it's fair to say that this one is, yeah, a very kind of hazy, it's more of a yellow colour, this one, rather than an orange. I'd say it's a very kind of hazy dark yellow. If I put my fingers behind the glass there, you can see this one is one of these Haze for Days beers. There's a solid, I'd say 2/3 finger of a frothy cream coloured head. In fairness, the head is a little bit bumpy on the top of this one, but 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, overall, it does look pretty damn nice, but nothing particularly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance when you consider that it is a New England IPA. From what they told me at Chios, this beer is particularly fresh, and you'll be seeing this about a week after I actually bought the beer, of course. I'm filming this one a week, and you'll see it a couple of days after that, of course. But yeah, it looks very, very nice, and you can smell some of these lovely fruity notes coming off this just as I move the glass around. So let's take a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on here. Oh, I can tell from the aroma this is going to be a pretty good beer. So the malt base immediately, let's focus on that, because this one, when you're moving the beer around, you get a hell of a lot of fruit out of it, but when you go into it more closely, the malt base jumps out at you. Lovely big kind of white bready wheaty malt in there. The almost slight sweetness of the oats jumps out at this one too. There's no kind of lactosey, dextrosey notes to this one, I would say, but the oats are coming out and as being particularly creamy in this one. There's almost a little bit of a... It's interesting with this one. You know, a lot of these New England IPAs can smell quite wheaty, but this one almost has a little touch of that kind of Weizen kind of character to it. It's almost got but it's quite mild, don't get me wrong on this. It's got a very, very slight Weizen banana-y quality to it, I would say, this one, just in the aroma. Yeah, no, I would say that about this one. There is something for me in this beer that is really making me think more Weizen a little bit. When you sugar it up a little bit, there's almost a little bit of a slightly herbal, vegetal kind of thing coming out of the malt base as well, but it smells very smooth and very creamy. Those are just very, very slight subtleties that I'm noticing in this beer. But yeah, nice little bit of a biscuity sweetness to it as well towards the front of the nose, I would say. I'm picking that up just almost here, if you like. It's strange to describe aroma as picking up in parts of the aroma, but the malt base to me smells, it leans towards the smooth and sweet side of things, but there is a little touch of sharpness in there. Some nice kind of hoppy notes. You can pick up that the aroma of this beer is quite, you know, it is actually quite floral and aromatic. It's got a nice little bit of a lighter grassy quality to it as well, but the floral notes are really on the green side of the hops. It's the floral side of things that's just pushing its way out a little bit more for me, and the fruity qualities are lovely. You know, you've got these juicier tangerine oranges, you've got a little bit of a sharper mandarin in there. Yeah, and you can definitely pick up the lime, I would say, is a little bit more subtle in this one. It's just sitting back a little bit. You can pick up those juicy limey notes. Maybe there's a little touch of the blueberry as well, which is one of these complexities that you can get from the Mosaic hop in particular. I've always found Mosaic just gives you this little bit of blueberry. But yeah, for me, this is a kind of tangerine-y Yeah, definitely a little bit of a sort of tangerine-y, mandarin-y orange, limey qualities in the background, and also a little bit of how would you say, a little touch of blueberry or something like that. It's really interesting. You can also pick up little bits of an almost pineapple-y or mango-y note to this one. There is a little bit more of a kind of tropical complexity to this, but mainly oranges and lime for me. But and as I say, the malt base, that little vegetal kind of thing that's going on in there, it is interesting actually. I'm very curious to see how that turns out in the flavour. But the aroma to this one, to me, it smells really inviting. You can smell that this beer is going to be nice, fresh and juicy. So without further ado, let's just get stuck into this one then. This one is the Guap, a New England style IPA coming in at 7% ABV from Gamma Brewing Company in Gorløse, just up in the northern part of Copenhagen. Azaka, Mosaic and Equinaut in this one. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål. Oh yeah. That's a really damn good beer. I can see, I'll just say to you, on one sip, I can see exactly what the guys at Kiosk were saying, that I need to try this one. You can see that beer's got even hazier just with the last little bit that I've put into this one. This is really, really good. You know, big thumbs up to Gamma Brewing for this one. Again, I've had some really, really awesome beers from them before. I remember, you know, the guys at the Old Collective. I mean, I've only really had. I've had Ghost Brewing before, but they're not there anymore. I have had one or two things on tap from Uls Nedkeren before, which have been very nice. And Gamma and Dry and Bitter have both been really good as well. The standard of the IPAs that are coming out of Denmark these days is still awesome. You know, it has been for a very long time, but this is just a very, very nice beer. Yeah, if you get the chance to try this one, have a go at it. You know, it's the thing that really separates a lot of these New England IPAs. It's all about how well you can do the malt base and how well you can balance in the juicy, fruity qualities of the beer. But this is a style that Gamma, I think, have got pretty much down. And I'm not surprised at the quality of this beer. But let's try and describe that flavour just a little bit better then. So for me, this one has a nice, it definitely has a nice kind of wheaty, white bready quality. That just blankets the middle of your palate. You'd expect that from the New England IPA, of course. If you just go in and on top of that base layer, if you like, there's a nice little bit of a creamy, oaty quality to this one, and you've got some sweeter kind of biscuity malt in the very centre of your palate as well. The further you go into the aftertaste of this beer, the smooth, wheaty quality really does linger in there too, which is very, very nice. Yeah, I really like how this beer's going together. I mean, they've done a really good job of this. The malt base is very, very nice, and it's not, some of the New England IPAs I found the malt base can dry out a little bit the further you go into the flavour, but this one really just sits there. I'm wondering with this one a little bit is that if there is a little slight touch of acidulated malt in there just from the way it's lingering on the palate. I've always found that Magic Rock in England always use these acidulated malts, and I'm wondering if there is a little bit of that in this beer just because of the way the malt base is kind of sticking around a little bit. Although I might be completely wrong. About that, but there's just something in the malt base of this one. It just almost gives you a little bit. It's just got a little bit of a sharpness to it, the malt base, that makes me wonder if there is a little touch of these acidulated malts in here. But the malt base, it doesn't try to be too complex. It's got the wheat, it's got the creamy oats on top of that, and you've got a little touch of a biscuity note. Pardon me, in the very centre of your palate too. Quite a simple malt base, but it really does kind of mix together pretty effectively, I would say. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you've got a little touch of earthiness in there. That's the Mosaic. The Mosaic does have a little, a distinctive earthiness to it, and I don't think Azaka does. but the almost slight earthy quality that you get from Mosaic is quite distinctive. As you come further forward along the sides of your palette, you get a nice floral aromaticity. It's not quite spicy, but it's very, very fresh and aromatic. I think it's fair to say that. But then round the very front curve of the palette, you've got that lighter, grassy quality to the beer coming out. So the green side of the hops are really nicely represented in this one. It works very, very well, that side of the beer, and it gives it just a nice little kick of freshness. So a lot of smoothness from the malt base, a little bit of sharpness in there from what I suspect might be a touch of acidulated malt, but very, very minimal. I would say in the beer, in fairness, the beer does smooth out a little bit the further you go into that aftertaste, but there is a little bit of just a kind of slightly sharper character lingering there the further you go into it. But the fruity side of things is where this one kind of really starts to blend very well. So yeah, on the fruity side of things then, lovely mix of kind of tangerines and mandarins in this one. The limey flavours for me are starting to come out. They really start to come out later the further into the flavour you go. For me, this one starts off with tangerines and oranges. You can, as I always say, that little oily bubble behind the front curve of your tongue. You can feel that nice tangerine mandarin sort of thing. It's not tangerines, it's more of a... It's more of a light. It is leaning a little bit more towards the mandarin side of things. This one, it's just got a little touch of sharpness to it. The oranges. This beer really, to me, is quite sharp in its flavour. It's got a little bit of kick to it, if that makes sense. But then when you move further towards the front of the palate on this one, right almost in the centre of that oily bubble, the limey flavours are just lingering there. And I've always found lime to me. Some people can find lime to be very, very smooth, but lime, to me, it's almost just a little bit of a slightly more dry flavour than some other fruits. And I just find that as the fruity side of this beer dries out a little bit, you start to get more and more of the lime. And the lime just lingers and pushes its way out into the aftertaste a little bit more. But that said, the mandarin-y, orangey notes in this beer are lingering in there as well. If you just go to the very front tip of your palate too, I think there's a little touch of a blueberry note which comes, it's almost just right on the very edge of your tongue. That comes from the Mosaic as well, which is very, very nice. But yeah, I like how everything in this beer goes together. Orange is pretty straight up, this one, and that's one of these. This is one of these beers that kind of backs up the argument of sometimes being a little bit more simple is better. Doing something simple but well can be a very, very good strategy, and you know, this beer for me really proves that quite nicely. It's lime, it's oranges, it's got a nice bit of a floral aromaticity to it, and it's got a nice malt base. It's got a nice malt base that's wheat, oats, and a little touch of a biscuity sweetness in there. This beer isn't the most complex New England IPA that you're going to come across, but it's certainly a really bloody good one, to be quite honest with you. Gamma Brewing Company have done a really kind of sterling job with this, and I can see why the guys at Shiosk were quite keen for me to have a go at this. This is a really, really nice beer, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. You know, it's up there with some of the best IPAs that I've tried over the last little while. This one really is very nice. You know, I reviewed the Nerd Brewing Switch a couple of days ago, which I bought at the same time. And that one was a little bit more of a kind of smoother, juicier one. This one just had a little bit more sharpness to it, and I love that when you try beers from different breweries. They all have their own interpretation of the style, and you get ones that are different but just equally as good. And this is a very, very solid example of the New England style, and it's cool to see. There's so many hops and things, you can do so much with these IPAs and stuff these days that you don't get bored of them. Although that said, I am missing a little bit of the West Coast IPAs. I'd love to be seeing some of the breweries having a go at the West Coast IPAs again, to give us a little bit more variety in that sense. But this is a very, very solid New England IPA, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. And it does live up to the hype that I've been that I heard from the guys at Shiosk, 100%. In terms of the mouthfeel, then, mid-bodied beer, carbonation is very, very smooth. The mouthfeel overall, I would say, is more creamy on this one. Good little bit of hoppy bitterness. I think this one might be pushing towards the 40 IBU mark, but that said, it could be nearer the 30, and it's just because it is so fresh that it's got a little bit more sharpness to it. Malt base, as I said, has a little touch of sweetness, but mainly some smoothness in there, and it's got some lovely juicy fruity qualities. There is a little bit of a sharper kick to this flavour as well. I do suspect there might be a little touch of acidulated malt in here, but again, it could just be a little bit of that green quality coming out of the hops because the beer is so fresh. But that said, it is coming out in the malt base a little bit as well, which is kind of interesting. But the main point to take away from this review is that this is a damn good beer, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. So if you get the chance to try this one, I really would recommend that you have a go at it. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this. This one is the Guap, a New England IPA coming in at 7% ABV, Mosaic, Azaka, and Equinaut in this one, and it's worked out really bloody well. Another excellent beer from the guys at Gamma Brewing Company, and I really look forward to reviewing more stuff from them over the next little while. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Gamma Brewing as well, and do give me some other Danish brewery recommendations that I can check out, because I always love reviewing the Danish beers for you. And as always, do check out my social media. Thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. Guap from Gamma Brewing Company, 7% New England IPA in Gurløse in the north of Copenhagen, here in Scandinavia, but over the water from me in Denmark. Slange, skål, have a go at this beer. Very, very nice.